So I see no problem with negotiating in executive session. In fact, I think it's the only productive way to proceed. Now, it could be beneficial as far as keeping people informed, that each proposal is put out in the public for the public to review. But again, I would reiterate, people interpret things differently. And you may want to put something into a proposal that you're negotiating. You may want to put something in a proposal that you are using as a bargaining chip, that you're willing to throw out. So, in my mind, if I do the cost-benefit analysis, I see very few benefits to doing it in open session. And I see a lot of costs. And I don't see it curing the ills that you seem to think it may. My opinion.
Thank you.
I'm Nick Chungus. I can't think of a more sure way of extending and complicating negotiations and probably increasing costs than going with public sessions. I find it difficult to understand how either side can be willing to give up anything in public, facing the ire of their own constituency, and opening up the possibility of protests from within their own constituency on a point-by-point basis. It seems to me that it multiplies the difficulties of negotiation.
Thank you. Yes.
Jeff Hollis. I guess my issue really is, I don't know if it's really clear some of the problems. I guess my issue is the practical side of it, is that we can, Rhode Island general law says that both sides have to agree on how you're going to negotiate. So even if you say, we want to negotiate in open session, the NEA can come back, and most likely will, given the history that they have never agreed, will come back and say, we refuse to negotiate in open session. So you haven't cured the ills, you haven't made it more transparent, you haven't done any of that, because you'll just be at a loggerhead, because both sides have to agree under Rhode Island state law. That's just the way it is. So my concern is you're sort of drawing a line in the sand, not correcting it, and you're really kind of giving up on the idea that we can work together and that we can let collective bargaining perhaps work. I mean, it took us 18 months to do the last one. We haven't even begun formal negotiations. I hope it takes us a lot less, but I guess my issue is from a practical standpoint of, even though you're calling for open negotiations and saying it'll do all of these things, the practical side of it is 99.9% sure it's not going to happen, because they're not going to agree to it, nor do they have to, because state law does not make them.
I'm not too sure, according to, well, lawyers probably will have to answer this question.
Unfortunately, and I do agree that it's unfortunate that we are in the courts, that we're already there, but let's not go even further into the courts. Let's not have more judges, more lawyers, and more mediators and arbitrators decide on our contract. This body decided 2 weeks ago that they didn't like binding arbitration because they didn't want third-party people deciding our contracts. Let's not let them. Let's negotiate. Let's try it. 6-7 months. If we're still here and we're not moving, then we may all be saying something different. But we're at the beginning of the process. Let's try it, and let's get working together and the bargaining process a chance.
I will tell you what my difficulty is, and this basically stems from the experience from the prior contract negotiations. Maybe I am not qualified to negotiate. Maybe I'm not. Because to me, truth is a truth and lie is a lie. You don't say things to manipulate someone else. I understand, and if the whole point, maybe I'm naive, but if we are going to say that we prepared and all of this was based, and I was one of the people who was pushing for this, let's not offer 1%, 2%, or 3%. Let's do projected budgets for the next 2 years, for every single year which covers a contract. Projected budgets. Everything supposed to be annotated with how did we come up with this number. This is based on these type of statistics, so it's based on projected number because we can draw the curve and interpolate to simply say that's what we anticipate. This is the amount of money we have. Take it, look at this, and tell me where we made a mistake. And show me that there is somewhere here even $5 or $100 more than what we anticipate. Obviously, I exaggerated because this is all in tens of thousands of dollars. Now, the answer is very simple. You're lying. Take it. You are hiding $1 million. That's right in newspapers that you're hiding $1 million. We went through this. So if this happens in the public eye, I'm not saying in public eye that everyone is sitting and everyone is listening to the union talking to the school committee and these ones screaming and these are screaming. That's not what I mean. In the public eye, it means that basically everything what happens is completely transparent, that you hear what happens. And there might be some moments where actually we might have an open meeting when the public can say what they want to say. Like, for example, right now we have this discussion, and like we have since this new committee was elected, we allow public to speak. To everyone you can say what you want to say. Eventually, we have to make decisions, but we want to hear people's opinion. And in such an extreme, and this applies to very small little decisions we make, you still can say what you feel about this. Eventually, we have these votes. Here we are negotiating something so big, which is going to impact your kids, is going to impact your taxes, and now we are going to make this deal, and then we are going to tell you what happened at the very end.
But that's the way it works.
That's the way it works.
But it doesn't have to
It's
be.
a compromise that Tiverton has come up with, and it actually is a better compromise than I think any other district in the state. We allow the negotiations to happen in executive session because the feeling is it's more productive, or both sides agree, whatever it was.
Absolutely.
But then we made a charter change that says 3 days before that gets voted on, release it, let us all read it, let us all have a comment. We actually we're not on either extreme. We're not saying you don't get to see it, and we're not saying everything's going to be done in open. We've come to a compromise, I think, in Tiverton that addresses both sides of the issue.
Because it's not working. We're already in
Mr.
court.
Burgundy, the trust issue seems to be a big thing for you, and it's just maybe maybe players on both sides of the table need to change. And we're fortunate that Mr. Brewer does have experience both as he commented, as a teacher and as an administrator. So maybe if we changed up some of the players on both sides because of the ill feelings, or added players that weren't there before, that we could change that dynamic.
Will you have open session also for superintendent's contracts, principal's contracts, Council 94 contracts?
For personal contracts, we cannot, because it impacts a specific individual person. So in the same way as, for example, anything which pertains to you specifically, you have a choice, obviously, to discuss it in the executive session, and this is your individual choice. If it's a contract which addresses a group of people,
Like the other two collectively.
correct.
There's state law that prevents us from doing that in open if the employee wants it in executive session.
Right, but it is setting a precedent. It may be worth, you may want to continue this, and you may have a joint workshop with the council. Because if the school committee makes a decision, and should the union agree to it for open negotiations, it sets a precedent that other unions may or may not want to participate in. So you're not, this is not one individual thing. The expectations will be the same for